I'm Primal Piggy. Thank you for joining me for another BDSM United podcast. Today we're continuing our ABCs of BDSM series where we're talking about the foundational things because it's important to build on a solid foundation. So if you've been involved in BDSM for a while, you may have some gaps there and that may be causing you some problems or some issues with how you deal with community or or maybe how you're doing relationships. There's things about BDSM that you don't, that you never picked up on that could be helpful for you, filling in those gaps. Or if you're new to BDSM, then resources like this are going to be exceptional and vital and important. We recommend that you pick up a book by Dr. Robert Rubel, Rubel. Uh, he has a book called BDSM Mastery Basics. And we really recommend this book. And that's kind of what we're teaching out of for this series. We're teaching out of that book. I have it here in my hand and I'm referencing some of the notes from it. We actually recommend all of Dr. Robert Rubel's resources. They are exceptionally written and they are very detailed, and yet they don't have a lot of the fluff. And I just really appreciate his writing style and just how concise he is, yet how he really covers everything. I really enjoy how, like me, he just really likes to understand how everything works and how everything works together. It's just his books are probably the best out there that I've found, and I regularly teach out of them. And so you'll find a lot of the principles and things that Dr. Robert Rubel has said, or you'll find a lot of those in this podcast overall, just in the history of this podcast. And a lot of the different resources that we do online. Uh, I learned a lot from him through his books and writings, teachings, and I pass those things along because a few years ago we said that we didn't want to talk a lot about all of the negative things that could be talked about involved with our culture and lifestyle. Rather, we would rather uh, be the change that we want to see, and we'll talk about the things that we enjoy and we like and the way we like to do BDSM. And hopefully people will uh, agree with us and agree with this more positive stance and glean whatever they can from us along the way. So, for those who use BDSM for sexual purposes, and remember from our previous podcast, not everyone is involved in BDSM sexually for a variety of reasons, whether you are a younger adult and you're still a virgin, or whether you're an older adult and you have hormone issues or erectile dysfunction, or you just don't uh, really want to have sex anymore. It's perfectly okay. Or maybe you're of the sexuality, such as asexual person, and maybe you're aromantic, or maybe you're demisexual. Maybe you just don't connect with sex in the same ways that other people do. Or maybe you have a disability or are a survivor of trauma and you just are not attracted to sex and BDSM, but you still like to do some kink or some kinky things or be involved in a power exchange relationship. You can have all of those things in BDSM, and BDSM doesn't have to include sex. But for those who use BDSM for sexual purposes, mastering S&M techniques has the surprising capacity to transform mundane sexual experiences into something quite extraordinary. It's what Dr. Robert Rubel likes to call connected sex. That is, S&M play parties, when done safely and correctly and with right intent and getting consent from all of those involved, and what the things that are negotiated and according to everyone's limits, can lead directly to an intimate connection between partners. I found this personally. I There's kinks that I enjoy. That's why I actually how I got my nickname Primal Piggy. They are two different sets of kinks that I really enjoy, and both of them, primal sex and piggy sex, are to me are about connection in ways that I connect with my partner. Primally is kind of sadistic and rough and kind of sometimes a little sarcastic, a little poking fun for my enjoyment. And then Piggy is liking to put all of the things in my mouth and liking to connect with and devour my partner fully. And so, in my personal life, I definitely see that the S&M and actually the B&D and all of it is a lot about intimate connection between myself and my partner. As a bottom, that's a word for those who receive kink, or those who are um, on the having done to them side of kink. You'll begin to experience connected sex once you play with someone who has mastered a range of S&M techniques and has also learned how to select from among those skills and apply them with greater or lesser intensity in response to your own reactions. And when you say master a range of S&M skills, and it's not necessarily that they're going to be a master, or that they're going to um, not have anything that they can't learn, but it's learning with a degree of efficiency, being able to safely do the kink and do it well enough that it's fun for everyone who's involved. As a top, and a top is the word that we use to associate with someone giving a kink, or someone doing the thing to the bottom, doing the kink. Once you learn how to correctly combine S&M and erotic stimulation to the degree and extent that builds the bottom's stimulation and pleasure, you'll develop the capacity to leave your partner possibly shaking and vibrating from an unforgettable orgasm, or just be floaty in a space like trance, perhaps. BDSM sex is often both more complex and more intimate than conventional, or plain, or vanilla. Those are two words that we generally say in relation to to normal sex. And by normal, we just mean things that are normative within how people do sex, that are not inherently kinky, just um, the types of things that are just ordinary, or and ordinary can a lot of times has to do with what is normative in the culture that you find yourself in, the ethnicity and culture and religion that is predominant in your area. And vanilla is not a prerogative term. It's not something that we use as an insult. We don't say that something's vanilla as if that is less desirable or bad in any way. It's just to describe aspects of sex and aspects of relationships that are not inherently kinky and maybe more egalitarian, may not have any type of exchange of power, where power is somewhat neutral, uh, where people are have a level of autonomy. where everyone involved has the same level of autonomy, for instance, would be just a vanilla relationship. Or we would describe in the BDSM world vanilla sex as being like just normal penis and vagina missionary sex, or regular you know regular homosexual sex, penis to mouth, penis to anus, or vagina to mouth, or vagina to vagina, fingers, light fingering, those kinds of things would probably be uh, more vanilla sex. Also, there's more vanilla sex can be terms like swinging, or can just be about just the sex, where where even if multiple peoples, twosomes, threesomes, foursomes, or more, can still be quite vanilla when it's just about sex, and it's not really about anything inherently kinky. The number of partners doesn't really necessarily make something kinky. The number of people involved isn't necessarily a kink. It can still be quite vanilla. That's why a lot of times we say that vanilla people come into BDSM spaces just looking for sex. And they're looking for sex with multiple partners or multiple people, but they're not inherently kinky, and they're not inherently part of BDSM culture. They're just using BDSM in kinky spaces like our social media sites, or our our events, or play parties. They're using those spaces just to try to hook up for sex. Not inherently good or bad. It's not necessarily an ethical dilemma. It's just people who are outside of our culture and outside of our lifestyle, appropriating things from us, or being opportunistic, to try to get our get uh, sex from people. And so, like I said, not necessarily uh, trying to make an ethical thing out of it, or a moral thing out of it. It's just, use it, trying to help you or help describe what vanilla is, and how it differentiates from BDSM. BDSM would be all those things: bondage, discipline, sadism, masochism, kinks and fetishes, expressed in combinations and in ways. And those things all um, make up, uh, in totality, and all kind of mashed together, make up BDSM. And anyone just looking for just sex and nothing else is oftentimes, we consider them vanilla. So, anyways, BDSM sex is often both more complex and more intimate than conventional or vanilla sex. Depicted in most porn videos, it involves discovering and mastering and learning and educating and communicating broad, sophisticated, and often counterintuitive uh, ways of playing and connecting with your partner. It's possible to create a remarkably potent experience of sexual connection by combining components of DNS relationships. Those dominant and submissive is what we're talking about. Service, protocols, discipline, and S&M play. Carefully administered intense sensations, and with established sex practices. The psychological control and surrender interplay between people in a power imbalanced relationship. And, creating uh, nights or even weird moments when you'll remember your entire life. So we said all that kind of say that uh, a good purpose for BDSM, and one of the best purposes, I believe, for BDSM is intimate connection. And so if you're coming in to BDSM just looking for sex, looking for physical attraction, you're probably more vanilla and you're probably just utilizing our culture for your hookups. But if you're coming into BDSM and you're looking for uh, the types of communication, the types of intimate connection, then likely BDSM is really for you and that you're interested ultimately in becoming more of a part of our culture. I'm Primal Piggy. Thank you for joining me for this BDSM United podcast, where we're talking about the ABCs of BDSM. You can find all of our resources at www.bdsmunited.com. It was a joy speaking with you today, and I'll talk with you again soon.